Right, what's happening, people, and welcome back to the Joey Knight Boxing channel. And have I got a treat for you today, because I am joined by a man who needs no introduction. He is the best combat-based YouTuber in the game. He's the brains behind the Pain Game, the #1 boxing channel on YouTube, and he's one of my best friends in the world. It is Brian, the true Geordie. Brian, what's happening, bro? You good?
Bro, what an introduction. You stop your lying. You know way more about boxing than I do. Subscribe to the Joey Knight Boxing channel. Come on, everyone. Get it done.
Listen, I'm going to link the Pain Game in the description to this video. Plenty of videos going out off there, including a reaction to Thursday's press conference between Tyson Fury and Oleksandr Usyk. I watched that myself last night, and it was a really, really good watch. So make sure you check that one out. But the news has now broken the last couple of hours that Eddie Hearn has done an interview, and he has given some light on the fact that we have been in suspense waiting for this AJ against Dubois rematch to be confirmed. And ultimately, in a nutshell, Eddie Hearn has said that AJ's now exploring the possibility of waiting out for the Tyson Fury against Oleksandr Usyk rematch and then possibly targeting a fight in May against Tyson Fury rather than going in for the rematch with Daniel Dubois. Brian, what do you think about that?
Well, the thing that really struck me at first, mate, was the fact that Eddie'd said, well, if Fury wins, we might miss out on the biggest fight in boxing. And I'm like, if Fury wins, he shouldn't be giving Anthony Joshua first dibs on his shot, in my opinion. You know, it should probably be the Usyk trilogy should be the next fight. If we're talking about this as a sport in terms of credibility of who's earned the right to fight Fury next. Alternatively, it's then Daniel Dubois. If Fury wins, right? So it's one of those two. To give it to AJ after he's just been battered by Dubois, giving him a shot at the unified heavyweight title, seems mental. However, what this really is about is money, right? We all know that's what decides boxing matches to a certain degree, and I don't have a problem with that. In some cases, right? When I'm looking at the way you've got to manage Anthony Joshua's remaining years of his career. What you don't want to do is leave money on the table. And if Anthony Joshua was to go in there and get starched by Daniel Dubois, which is entirely possible, that Fury fight just diminishes tremendously. It's already been diminished over the years. Unfortunately, we're not going to get them at 100% with titles on the line. The likelihood is, it's going to be a hard fight for Fury, and Fury lost before. He could easily lose again. That then becomes a very even match in order to hype and build up as a 50-50 fight, right? They're both coming off the back of losses. They're both beltless, but this is about pride. This is about the Battle of Britain. It's an easy fight to sell. I think even if Fury wins, we could logically make that. But I do think the fans would look at that and go, what the fuck is going on here? Like, AJ's just been battered. He's getting a title shot. It makes more sense if Fury loses. And I think Eddie's just trying to do the best thing by his fighter business-wise to go, look, if you take the Fury fight, it's a better stylistic matchup for you than Daniel Dubois. Daniel Dubois, attributes-wise, he matches AJ in many ways. Whereas Fury he's a different fighter altogether than AJ. They clash in a way that he might be able to beat Fury because he has certain attributes over him. Obviously, it could go either way.
It's funny because Eddie Hearn speaks about the fact that if Fury wins, this might be the ideal route. I very much agree with you in the fact that it's more likely that this will happen if Fury loses. Now, I don't write off the possibility of Fury winning that fight. I really honestly do believe deep in my heart that that's a 50-50 fight with himself and Oleksandr Usyk, and we all know who I'll be rooting for on the night. So the live stream for that one's going to be absolutely epic. Hopefully, I'm on the better end of it this time out, but I've got my feeling about how this might go. But what I do know is a lot of you guys will have heard me constantly speaking about my appreciation for Turki Al-Sheikh, and I really have got to give that appreciation for him here, because if you'd lived in my shoes and never been able to see these huge fights, right, for when we had wanted them and when guys were in their prime and whatnot, and now all of a sudden we're starting to get them, you'd really, really understand why I appreciate it so much. But the elephant in the room here is, much like you just said, these guys might not be in their prime. In fact, they definitely aren't in their prime. But what I don't feel like it does is diminishes the appetite for that fight. Now, we were lucky enough to be at Wembley, and Liam Gallagher was there putting on a performance. Now, would you say that was a prime Liam Gallagher?
I definitely don't think so.
I don't think so either. But I tell you what, the Oasis reunion ticket sold out like that. And I would imagine that AJ against Tyson Fury, even if AJ is coming off the back of a loss to Dubois, and even if hypothetically Tyson Fury was to lose against Oleksandr Usyk, will still be a fight that sells massively. Now, do you think it's risky, by the way, Anthony Joshua taking this fight? Because Tyson Fury's had cuts where he's had to pull out. He's facing a pound-for-pound great in Oleksandr Usyk, and we know what a dangerous sport boxing can be. And obviously, there's always the chance that AJ might have to suffer from a bit more inactivity if that fight was to, God forbid, be delayed or anything like that. Or do you think all of those risks that I've just mentioned are outweighed by the risk of taking on a beast, if we're honest, in Daniel Dubois?
I think if he takes the Dubois rematch, it may obliterate any chance of the Fury fight, which is why Eddie's like, nah, fuck that. Like, if you go in there and get smashed to bits by Fury, as much as, you know, the Liam Gallagher comparison is a good one, one more of those brutal breakdowns that he suffered from Dubois, it does dampen the appetite for a Fury fight. And what they're trying to do is preserve the money as best as they can. And for me, the smartest, sensiblest thing to do is just get this Fury fight over with Usyk. It'll go whichever way it'll go. And make the AJ fight immediately. Sign the contracts, get them locked in. All right, if anyone gets an injury on the run up the weight, it doesn't matter. We wait for him. We neither of us are fighting anyone until we settle this. And for me, that is the smartest move for business. In terms of the sport, if Fury wins, it's a disgrace. It's a disgrace. If Anthony Joshua gets the title shot against Fury for the unified belts ahead of Usyk, ahead of Daniel Dubois, who both beaten AJ, it's a disgrace. However, I'd fucking love it. I'd love to see it. I just want to see these two in the ring to finally settle this.
Who do you think is a better stylistic matchup for Anthony Joshua at this stage of his career out of Daniel Dubois and Tyson Fury?
I think they can both beat AJ, but I think that Anthony Joshua is an attributes fighter. He's always been in the ring and felt like the more quicker, explosive, powerful guy, bigger, longer reached a lot. He's got so many attributes on the people he gets in the ring with. And for me, those attributes were at their smallest, or if not insignificant, against Daniel Dubois. And what Daniel Dubois had that Anthony Joshua didn't have is that fearlessness, that hungry lion. I'm going to take this win and there's nothing you can do about it. Fury ain't a hungry young lion. And, he didn't fight Usyk like a hungry young lion either. I'm not saying he didn't try and win the fight, but he didn't have that I am willing to die in this ring to get this belt, the way Dubois had the eye of the tiger. And I think that with the power advantage he's got on Fury, that we see the strength and the size of AJ, we see in Francis Ngannou, gave Fury some issues and that he couldn't physically manhandle or bully Ngannou. I think there's more paths to victory in my head against Fury for AJ, even if Fury can still beat him, than I can see for that Dubois fight right now. I think that's a horrible fight for him style-wise.
Do you know what? I actually think that when we were talking about both men declining, I don't think they've either declined to an extent where it's no longer an exciting fight, a competitive fight. And do you know what? Sometimes as fighters decline, as long as they're declining at equal measure, it will be a really competitive fight. And the funny thing is, there's always been the sort of general perception that Tyson Fury has took more damage during his career than Anthony Joshua. But off the top of my head, and I'm sure the fact checkers will tell me in the comments if I'm wrong, it's actually Anthony Joshua that's been on the deck more than Tyson Fury, and it's obviously Anthony Joshua that has been knocked out cold now. So I think it's somewhat of a level playing field. But when we
that last fight, even the numbers are big time.
There you go. When we look at Tyson Fury, right, I think that We may well agree that his best ever win is Vladimir Klitschko. That was a Klitschko 10 years unbeaten. The bookies had Tyson Fury at a 9-2 underdog in that fight. Comparison-wise, I think they had AJ at 5-3 on when he fought Vladimir Klitschko. So I think that when you look at what Tyson Fury did out in Dusseldorf there, I don't think he definitely gets the credit, but I don't think that people realise that that was a formidable version of Vladimir Klitschko. So as much as you'd say that is his best win, what would you personally say was your favourite performance of Tyson Fury?
Do you know my most impressive win, the one where I sat back and went, fuck me, wow, was probably... The third Wilder fight was the one I was kind of most impressed with, in the sense of Fury looked like shit in that fight. And Wilder didn't look great either. But what it was, what Vladimir Klitschko did not have in Dusseldorf was that absolute commitment to die in there that Deontay Wilder had in that third fight, right? I rate Klitschko as an infinitely better boxer than Wilder. But Wilder's power and his willingness to go in there and give every last drop of himself in that fight, and the fact that Fury wasn't in the best of shape, it was a hell of a fucking win, that. Especially the way he knocked him out cold at the end and ended the whole debate. But the best, most impressive version of Fury for me is Wilder 2.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with that. And then this is something that I think you can sort of draw a bit of context to when you look at stylistically. You say that Dubois is a better matchup. Fury's a better matchup than Daniel Dubois. And I'm not necessarily going to disagree with you, but when you look at that Wilder 2 fight, Fury started quick, non-stop pressure, took the centre of the ring, forced the work early, and really backed Deontay Wilder up to the rope. So does that not give you, say as an AJ fan, for example, does that not give you cause for concern that we have seen Tyson Fury do that, and that is something that was pretty much done by Daniel Dubois to Anthony Joshua in the last fight?
Yeah, I think against a 215-pound Deontay Wilder, there was a clear power, and well, not a power, but a strength advantage. He was able to be the dominant force in there.
Of course.
And he was athletically, like, that to me was a really good balance of fitness and power of Fury. That was the best he'd ever looked. In later years, I don't think he's looked quite as formidable physically. And also, as we've seen with Ngannou, he's not able to bully those bigger guys the way he could Deontay Wilder, who is not really a proper heavyweight. He's a cruiserweight with heavyweight power in his hands. And I think with AJ, 255, 60 pounds in there, you're going to have some shots flying back at you when you're trying to do that. I think the thing that would make me wary of AJ for AJ right now is I don't know what his shot resistance is like. You know, it's not that he can't take a shot and keep going. But it is that he can't take a shot and fight well through it. Whereas Tyson Fury has always took a shot well and kept fighting well. I mean, the fact that he finished that fucking Usyk fight is insane. So, you know, providing Fury doesn't lose in a bad way against Usyk, I feel like he might be the bookie's favourite going in to the AJ, fight, which actually is kind of contradictory to the way I was feeling prior to the Dubois fight. I felt like Fury was showing physical decline more. AJ, being body beautiful like he is, hadn't really had any issues. Even against Usyk, he lost those fights, but he didn't look in as much trouble as Fury. So I was leaning more towards AJ. But AJ's shot resistance looked so bad against Dubois. And don't get me wrong, Dubois hits like a fucking horse kicks, but Big Baby Miller did 10 rounds with him. Hrgovic lasted quite well in there and took a lot of shots off him. AJ really couldn't take anything off of him. Every time he got caught clean, he was really struggling. So that would make me worry.
Do you know what I worry about for Tyson Fury? When I look at this fight with Oleksandr Usyk coming up, I really don't want to feel like there's any distractions, and the I don't want to call them Fury haters, but there'll be a lot of people that understand that I am a fan of Tyson Fury. I openly admit that, and they'll get in the comments for me for saying what I'm about to say right now. But Francis Ngannou against Tyson Fury was a night that shocked the world, and you know that all too well. I think your reaction maybe was seen by more people than even saw the fight itself. In fact, I'd definitely say it's a
What a
moment that will
night,
probably
mate,
go down
honestly.
in history, to be honest. But one thing with that Francis Ngannou fight was that Tyson Fury very much knew that after that Francis Ngannou fight came the Oleksandr Usyk fight. And I have been in a similar experience recently, being in this lightweight tournament, right, where I know what is next or what is potentially next when I'm fighting. And I'm not going to say it as a distraction and making excuses for me, but I also don't think it's something that helps all that much. So going in to the most important fight and this huge rematch, do you think it can be a negative for Tyson Fury knowing that Anthony Joshua fight is next? Because when we've seen interviews of Tyson Fury this week, and it's always worth taking Tyson Fury's words with a little bit of a pinch of salt, he has spoke about the fact that boxing now is about money. So when you know you're about to go into a very well-paid fight against Oleksandr Usyk, and you also know that providing you're not injured or hurt, touch wood, and you come through that, even in loss, you've got another big payday there. Do you think that that's something that could hurt the preparation or the performance on the night of Fury?
It's a very good question. And I think it's entirely possible that in many, many cases, with the way these things are getting played out, that wouldn't help. The thing that changes it for me is against Francis Ngannou. I think one of the reasons he took his eye off the ball was he knew he wasn't Usyk and he wasn't the guy who was expected to come up against who would give him his hardest fight. And Ngannou, he'd never seen him box before. I think there was a multitude of problems that produced the worst version of Tyson Fury and enabled Francis to shock him. I think that fight would be different if they fought again. I think it would be a lot harder for Francis, to be fair. But, the planets aligned, the stars aligned, however you want to put it. In this fight, the difference maker for me is I think he knows fine well Oleksandr Usyk is the hardest fight in boxing.
Yep.
And his hardest fight of all time. And I just think that because the last fight was so hard for him, and I actually think Fury dug fucking deep in that fight. I think he really, really. When people go, "Oh, he's going to come in better," I'm not saying that he can't, but I think it's going to be hard to be any better because I think Fury looked fantastic in that fight. I think he gave a lot. I think there's a few percent left that he could have given in risking it all and going for the knockout, kill or be killed. But I think he gave a lot, and I think he knows he is going to have to give every last drop of himself in this fight. So for him to then start thinking about AJ when there's no guarantees he gets past Usyk, I think it's going to be a lot harder for him to get sidetracked.
I think that with the matchmaking that we're now getting, thanks to Riyadh TV, we're really able to make more informed comparisons between how fighters fare against each other. And it's able to give us a better perception on whether losses were as bad as we initially thought they were or wins were as good as we initially thought they were. And when you look at Oleksandr Usyk, for example, I would completely agree with you that is one of Tyson Fury's best ever performances. Look at what Daniel Dubois has just done to Anthony Joshua, and look at, despite there being a bit of controversy with the low blow and whatnot, look at how Usyk dealt with Daniel Dubois.
He dealt with him. That's the right word, mate. He fucking dealt with him. And that the way he finished Daniel Dubois, looking back at it now, at the time it was kind of a routine. It felt like a routine title defense. Yeah, he's going to beat Dubois. Like, I think we just underrated what a monster Dubois is because Usyk made it look so comfortable because the level Usyk is on is insane. And as you're about to say, Fury did far better than Dubois did against Usyk.
And this matchmaking, man, it's going to silence, over time, it's going to silence a lot of these guys who, they do their 9 to 5, they get home from work and then they get straight on YouTube and tell you how every fighter that's took a recent loss is complete trash. Every fighter that's took a recent win is the best thing since sliced bread. And they really do knock fighters down. And Tyson Fury's getting a lot of that at the moment. But I do truly believe that with this next fight against Oleksandr Usyk, we're going to have a lot more of our answers. Now, someone who will have a lot of answers as to questions that maybe we as the general boxing public don't know about Tyson Fury is Anthony Joshua's trainer, Ben Davison. He's been with him a while now. This will be their 4th fight together. What do we make of it? Are we over the whole situation that Ben Davison will ultimately be trying to formulate a game plan to beat a man who he was once in the corner of and shared a lot of ups and downs, highs and lows, and emotional moments with?
Fucking good question, mate. You know what? You think back to that time where we seen Fury running on the roadside in Morecambe. Deontay Wilder, I'm coming for you. And that comeback that Fury did, and you know that was what made me a fan of Fury in a big way, was that mental health revival. And let's not kid ourselves, Ben Davison was a massive part of that. I'll give Ben Davison his criticism. I don't think the coaching was perfect for the Daniel Dubois fight. I think that's quite obvious. I think that, you know, you do what you do in the training ground, you're doing it on the pitch, and I do think that there was issues in camp. However, he gave a lot to Tyson Fury. I'm talking living with him, getting him up in the morning, keeping him off the booze and the drugs and everything, and keeping him on this straight and narrow. Tyson Fury might not be getting these mega paydays now if it wasn't for the work that Ben Davison put into him as a coach, but as a friend. Now, they don't talk anymore. What does that say? It's not great.
There's been a rift, yeah.
Yeah, it's not great. It's not great. Now, that tells me that there's probably pain on both sides for different reasons. And I would assume the pain comes from the outside looking in. We don't know the full story, but it seemed like after that first Deontay Wilder fight, and you know, Big John was speaking up very loudly as he does, you're not good enough for my boy. We need someone else. And then they went in a different direction. And that must have been kind of hard for Ben to take, right? Because, you know, he didn't just treat him like a normal fighter. And yes, there was something in it for Ben in regards to, you know, he's a hell of a talented fighter to work with. But equally, no one else was believing in Tyson Fury when Ben Davison did. No one else. I'm pretty sure Eddie Hearn had a chance to sign Tyson Fury and said, fuck that. He's not worth it. He's done. So Ben did a lot, and emotionally that must have been tough for him to get fucked off by someone who he put so much into. So for me, I don't have a problem at all with Ben working with AJ and telling AJ every single trick in the book that Fury knows, and telling him as much as he wants, because at the end of the day, it was Tyson's choice to leave Ben, in my opinion.
One of the claims from Tyson Fury, and I read this in one of his books, and again, doesn't mean it's factual, but I'll just throw it out there to play devil's advocate. One of the claims was that after the initial Deontay Wilder fight, Tyson Fury very much realised in that fight the way to beat Deontay Wilder, which originally I think he had formulated the game plan to try and box with him and herk and jerk style, twitchy, fainting movement, be elusive, be awkward like he did Vladimir Klitschko. And once he cracked Wilder a few times, he realised that, do you know what? If I had have gone in there on a seek and destroy mission, then maybe I would have had a better chance of being able to do so. So off the back of that, Tyson Fury claimed that he went to Ben Davison and said, look, still want you here. I want to bring Sugar Hill in too. And I can completely understand if this was the case, by the way. I'm not claiming it's fact. I'm claiming that I've read it in one of Tyson Fury's autobiographies. If that was the situation, I can completely understand why Ben Davison... And you know what? Give a lot of credit, by the way, from a financial aspect and everything else like that, why Ben Davison could say, do you know what? No, I want to be the head coach. I want to have my voice as the only one that can be heard. But we can also look at a very, very notable example of Anthony Joshua. After he lost to Andy Ruiz, he brought in Angel Garcia, I think it was, and he worked...
Angel Fernandez,
sorry.
Yeah.
He worked alongside Robert McCracken. So it can work both ways, and I really do understand that. Now, there's not many examples to mind, and I'm sure the comment section will be able to let me know this, of fighters who have once trained a fighter and then gone against that fighters or worked with one of those fighters' next opponents and formulated a game plan to even come up against them, let alone beat them. But one notable example that does come into my head is Shane McGuigan being at the centerfold of the fight between Chris Billam-Smith and Lawrence Okoli. Now, Lawrence Okoli was a standout amateur and had a lot more
good
pedigree.
rapper as well.
Yeah. Great rapper.
we we were listening to his rap video as we were getting on the fucking plane home from Saudi. Like, what the fuck am I listening to? Yeah, like that was mental.
Listen, I mean, you'd think he was like you were saying, you would think he was earning AJ money with the way he was rapping in that video. But
he was very happy.
However you want to sell yourself, and listen, each to their own. What I would say is in that fight with Shane McGuigan being training, Chris Bidham-Smith. Chris Bidham-Smith, I had a look earlier, was a betting underdog in that fight. He had obviously done less in the game than Lawrence Okoli and was less touted than Lawrence Okoli. And he dropped Okoli about 5 times on his way to relinquishing that world title off of Lawrence Okoli. So in that situation, it was something that worked. And you would have to guess that that was formulated by Shane McGuigan having some inside information on what the weaknesses were and the areas of exploitation of Lawrence Okoli in that one. But what I would say, to then play devil's advocate to this, is if you ask anyone that knows their boxing and you say, what style of trainer is Ben Davison? I don't think they're going to say, oh, he's a motivation man. He's the sort of man to give you a slap round the chops in the corner and tell you to go and take it. Ben Davison is a trainer who is an analytical trainer. He's a thinking man. He loves to study video footage. So despite maybe having a little bit of inside information on maybe niggles and injuries and weaknesses that Tyson Fury may have that the general public don't know, I actually don't think it makes as much of a difference as people would maybe perceive.
I don't know. I honestly think you've got your best possible chance of beating Tyson Fury with Ben Davison in your corner.
Yeah.
Will it be the deciding factor? No, I think whoever wins out of those two was going to win. But I think it definitely gives you a percentage. It definitely does, because I think Ben, being as analytical and as observant as he is, he's a smart guy. I don't just think he knows Tyson Fury on a boxing level. I think he knows him on a mental level, and he could tell you everything to say to get under his skin. He spent so many hours with this guy. He knows his biggest vulnerabilities in boxing and in personality and in life. So I think it would just give AJ the best possible chance in that fight. I think that's the best way I can describe it.
It makes me quite sad, this situation, if I'm being completely honest.
Isn't it, bro?
Do you know, mate, it's like me splitting up with an ex and then my best mate getting with her. It's it is quite a sad situation, but it's a situation that I'm happy to see unfold nevertheless. Now,
imagine the dynamic. For you and I as content creators, it spices that fight up even more, as if it needed it.
Yeah, it really is mental. When I look at the fight itself, one thing that I would say is, despite looking impressive in performances under Ben Davison until the last fight, obviously against Daniel Dubois, and it's heavyweight boxing, that can happen. What I wouldn't say Ben Davison has managed to do so much with Anthony Joshua is really, really up that output. Now, a lot of people will look straight away at the Otto Wallin fight and they'll say, hold on, he dismantled Otto Wallin. And he did. But output-wise, it wasn't the AJ of old. And what you could say is that's because of the levels. But I would argue that Anthony Joshua, even against Vladimir Klitschko, was a man that had that higher amount of output. And when I look at AJ... route to beating Tyson Fury, I really do believe that route would consist of AJ having to take the fight to Tyson Fury. Do you think that AJ will be able to get over what I perceive to be a little bit of gun shyness? And do you think that he'll be able to come out almost take some advice and take some lessons from his past conqueror in Daniel Dubois and really put the heat on Tyson Fury early on?
The tricky bit is, I think Fury's recovery and engine are both better than Anthony Joshua. And I think part of the trade-off, when we see Joshua against Wallin and against Ngannou, I watched that Ngannou fight back again, and I thought, because I was worried about AJ in that fight, because I thought, you've just never been hit by someone with that level of power before. And Ngannou just didn't enact it. He just froze Ngannou on the night. And Ngannou gave him all the time, space, and most importantly, energy to unload the clip on him when it was time. But he got to do it in his own good time. And Dubois showed that's exactly how you beat AJ. You don't give him that time. You don't give him that space. I'm not sure Fury can fight the same way Dubois can. But can AJ take a shot from Fury? I'm really concerned about AJ's chin. And it's not that I don't think he's got a chin that can handle a punch. As I've said, I don't know if mentally his central nervous system can cope with taking shots and carrying on boxing. There was a moment in that first round, and I remember when AJ got clipped after 15 seconds, he took one right on the chin. And when we were watching it, I think we were so in the moment and we were living on adrenaline at that point. We didn't really take a notice as just to how bad that shot affected him, because he tried to do like a pull counter right hand afterwards, and just the whole way he turned his body into it, he just looked like he didn't know how to throw a punch properly anymore. Yeah. And that's what I'm talking about here is, can his brain keep continuing to fight as he's supposed to? Because we know Fury does that probably better than any other fighter. The fact that Fury even continued after that 9th round against Usyk is a miracle. So, you know, that dogged determination to carry on through a fight no matter what's going on is with Fury. I think AJ, I don't think anyone in boxing, any boxing analysis, fan, journalist, any of us can sit there with confidence and say he can take a shot and he'll be fine and he'll come through it. No, you have to show us that now, because we've already had worries, but no one ever stuck it on him until Dubois. He got away with a lot. Ngannou and other fighters, as much as Ngannou's not a great boxer, he should be looking back at that fight going, why did I not just roll the dice and go after him? Because no one's done that. Yeah. And now Fury will look at that and go, well, I know what plan A is.
I'm sure we're going to cover this fight so much more as we get more sort of revelations as to what's going to happen. We learn more about the situation unfolding, and I think we're going to do so. And I truly do feel like, as much as the burning question I'd love to ask you is who you'd make as a favourite in this fight, I don't feel that we can give an informed prediction on that until we see the fight unfold on December the 21st between Tyson Fury and Oleksandr Usyk. Because I'll tell you what, right? Fury's been down in fights, dropped twice against Wilder in the first fight, dropped twice against Wilder in the third fight, dropped by Nevin Pajcic, dropped by a couple of other guys during his career along his sort of unconventional route to the top of the game. But I honestly believe that in that fight, despite not touching the canvas, I believe that that's the most punishment that Tyson Fury's taken in a fight. So I really do think we need to see where he is at in this next one, and then we can give an informed prediction on how a Tyson Fury against Anthony Joshua fight goes. But just before I let you go, Brian, and I got a question.
I got a question for you now. I got to ask one question. Are you worried as a Tyson Fury fan, and I know you are, you're a proper fan, that punishment will have lasted and you will see potentially a diminished version of Fury because you know how sometimes you just take a few too many smacks and eventually that you get dropped easier and easier. Are you worried that might come sooner in the fight because of the level of damage last time?
Yeah, I am worried. And do you know what the weird thing about me being a Tyson Fury fan is, right? Why are you usually a fan of a fighter? Well, I give you the answer. You're usually a fan of a fighter because you enjoy watching them. I don't enjoy watching Tyson Fury. I'm being completely honest.
It's like me with Newcastle, isn't it? It's something you're just you've married into this now.
And don't get me wrong here. I don't want my words to be misconstrued, right? I love watching back fights of Tyson Fury. I love to watch some of the moves, some of the performances. Like, they honestly, like, I say this, people say to me all the time, you know, like, I get it in the comments and people give me stick about being a Tyson Fury fan, and as well, like, to be completely transparent, it's an awkward situation for me when Tyson Fury's a man that's had a bit of beef with a man that I love dearly in yourself. But Tyson Fury and the comeback story and the motivational story of what happened to him, it happened a time in my life when I was really, really seeking sort of motivation. I was in quite a dark place and whatnot. So I think that I haven't got a short memory, and that sort of lives with me. And that's one of the reasons why I'm sort of a passionate fan of his, regardless of how his career is unfolding and what happens now. But I don't actually enjoy watching his fights live because I'm very invested into them. And for that reason, I'd have to answer your question and say, yeah, it is a massive concern of mine. The chin may well be deteriorating somewhat. But one thing that I do know that Tyson Fury has is a natural instinct and a natural power of recovery. And that's something that I think will fare him really, really well in this fight. Because if you were to say to me that this fight between Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury isn't so much a technical one, and it is a war, and it is a slugfest, and both men do get dropped, well, if both men get dropped, no matter what order it happens in, my money's on Tyson Fury to be winning that fight, because I think the powers of recovery, until I see otherwise, are that far superior to Anthony Joshua's powers of recovery. But before I let you go, mate, I want to thank you very much, because what the viewers don't know is we've had a couple attempts today, and you being the pro and me being new to the game, it was obviously my reason why this sort of fucked up a couple of times, and you've given me plenty of your time today, as you always do. But the last thing I want to ask you, right, is if this fight is to happen next and Anthony Joshua is to somewhat swerve that Daniel Dubois rematch, what next for Daniel Dubois? Because we've got to remember, the AJ fight was a voluntary defence, and the belt that Daniel Dubois holds is the IBF. Now, we all know what Tyson Fury thinks of the IBF. If not, check out the interviews from the other day. But
that was hilarious.
As much as the IBF are brutal, I also think that there's two sides to every story. And I think that one of the reasons why a lot of people feel frustration with the IBF, I think they've already ordered Beterbiev to defend against his mandatory. We want to see the Bivol rematch, and that means that rematch won't be for undisputed. The rematch between Tyson Fury and Oleksandr Usyk won't be for undisputed. And whose fault is that? The IBF's, because they are so strict on their mandatories. And being that Daniel Dubois' defense against Anthony Joshua wasn't a mandatory and it was a voluntary, you would assume that a mandatory will come next. Now, we heard the news that there is going to be a fight, and it has been ordered by the IBF, between one of my favourite fighters at the moment, Martin Bakole, and Ajit Kabayel. And that fight is to determine the next in line to face Daniel Dubois. Now, it's rumoured that fight has already had negotiations taking place, and it's rumoured that fight may even be added to an upcoming card. It may, if we're really lucky, even be added to the Fury Usyk undercard. The next person who you would imagine should kind of be next in line would probably be Joseph Parker. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I was leaning that direction. I mean, obviously, we've got a situation now where Usyk versus Fury could determine what AJ and Dubois also do next, because we could see Dubois challenge Usyk for the undisputed. We could have another go at undisputed. Who knows? But if that's not the fight, I look down the list and I look at Joseph Parker as a standout. I look at Zhilei Zhang as a standout. In the meanwhile, while Kabayel and Bakole sort out who's going to fight after that. But Bakole, because he's been talking about how he's decked Dubois in training, and I really like watching Bakole. I think he's a fun fighter to watch. That is a style clash that I would love to see if he can come through the Kabayel fight.
I remember years and years ago, I'm going to sound like I'm blowing my own trumpet here, but when Tyson Fury was around sort of English title level, there was a lot more media attention at that moment in time around David Price. And I remember telling so many people, listen, keep your eye on this fella Tyson Fury, right? Well, I'm doing it now. Keep your eye on Martin Bakole. And I'm not just saying it off the back of the Jared Anderson win. You know, as a friend of mine, I've been saying this long before that. Keep your eye on Martin Bakole. But I'll tell you what, we mentioned Joseph Parker, right? Joseph Parker's not ranked inside the top 15 by the IBF either. So if we assume that Ajit Kabayel against Martin Bakole has already gone to a point where negotiations have gone so far that fight's going to happen, do you know who the next man in line behind Ajit Kabayel and Martin Bakole in the IBF rankings is?
Who?
is Zhile Zhang.
You know what? This is the thing. We're selling movies, aren't we, in this game, right? And Zhang is a movie star. You know, he's a villain. He's like a James Bond villain, right? So him versus Dubois, I think it's a good fight for Dubois. It's a dangerous fight for him because Zhang can shut the lights out. But what Zhang struggled with against Joseph Parker, that high tempo, I think Dubois brings that with power as well. I think it's an even harder fight for him than Parker was. I'd love to see it though, because there is always the chance Zhang can catch you. And him being a southpaw, he's a tricky bastard.
Yeah, really, really looking forward to that one. Although we don't have any answers as to what is next for any of the men, barring Tyson Fury and Oleksandr Usyk, that we've discussed in today's video, we do very much have the answer to what is next for boxing. And that, for me, is Riyadh season. Riyadh season's taken over. We're getting the best fights, and I am very much here for it. So, real big shout out to His Excellency Turki Al Sheikh and the guys at Riyadh Season. Real big shout out for them having us on the Pain Game and being able to cover these events. It's an opportunity that I never, ever, ever thought in my life that I would be in a position to be in. And I've got to thank you for that, mate, as well, because it's all come off the back of the work that we've done together. So buzzing's an understatement in terms of how things are going at the moment. And do you know what? One of our chats recently, and a lot of our chats recently, are the reason that these guys are seeing so much content banged out off of this channel from me right now, because you definitely inspired me to really, really push this boxing channel now, and I'm really seeing the fruits of that labour. So thank you very much, mate, and thank you for your time as always. Big
Pleasure,
up
bro.
to my friend Brian, the true Geordie. The Pain Game is linked in the description. Make sure you're there,
to Joy Night
and I'll
Boxing.
see you all in the next one.